gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Box to Box on AFTV. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, please like, please stick a comment in. Today we are here with Jack, who unfortunately is a Fulham fan.
Unfortunately for me, anyway.
Yeah, so I came in homage to Fulham in a white shirt, and yeah, we're gonna be getting into Fulham versus Arsenal, which is live 5:30, Craven Cottage. Premier League is back. So if you don't know already, the watch along AFTV are going to be hosting a watch along in the studio. So please get involved. Please, Jack, how are we doing, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. I'm not all that confident ahead of this weekend. Normally, I come in here, I've done the last couple of box to boxes last night, and I'm always there like, you're a better side than us, that's okay. Like we know where these two sides live in the table. But I always come in saying Fulham punches chance, right? Like we've been a side that have upset the odds a little bit. I think last four, you've won one against us in that time. And yeah, it's kind of looking at it this time round and not feeling great about Saturday, I'll be honest.
Yeah, so what is it that you're not feeling great about in a nutshell?
Well, okay, a couple of things. So one, I think this is the strongest that an Arsenal squad has looked in terms of depth for a while, right?
So from an outsider's point of view, you genuinely, when you look at Arsenal, obviously compared to other seasons, and I've seen a trajectory in the last 4 years of this Arsenal team getting stronger and stronger, but obviously as an Arsenal fan, there's the general bias consensus. But from an outside fan's point of view, what is your honest look and take on this Arsenal one team and two squad?
Well, I think this is it, right? Like, has the team itself, like as an 11, got loads better from last year? Not loads. Like, as in, I think we're probably talking about similar kinds of levels. But imagine last year, Martin Odegaard out for this game, right? Last year, I'll be looking at that, rubbing my hands and being like, okay, how are they going to create down that right-hand side? We know Ben White's been in and out. And look, Kieran Timber's a wonderful player. But like that original combination, Saka, Odegaard and Ben White down that right, felt like it was the way that Arsenal got at teams. And look, we've been quite good at shutting that down. Anthony Robertson, I'll come on to him in a minute. But in terms of like this time round, you're looking at it and saying, well, rotate the midfield. Doesn't matter if it is Zubimendi at the base, Mourinho and Rice. You know, we see Mourinho's goal scoring form for Spain. What is it, 8 in 8 internationally at this point? Yeah. You know that Eze can drop into that number 10. We know that there's different options that Arsenal can utilise, and for me, that's the difference this year. Okay. It's like if Saka and Odegaard were out last year, it was like, well, Arsenal aren't going to create anything. Set pieces short, 100%. And look, there's time for that, 100%. You've got to take all the little bits and bobs that make the game go round. Yeah. But this time around, you're like, oh, I know Madueka's out at the moment in terms of a response. But you know, when Saka was out early in the season, you're like, okay, there's someone who can make things happen, who can stretch down that side. The different options in terms of a number 9. So for me, it's that depth, right? Like that is the thing that I think is going to maybe prove the difference at the end of the season. And the reason that you can have the conversations, and I'm sure you're having them all the time on AFTV about, you know, whether you need to win the title this year or need to win a trophy in terms of Arteta. For me, the difference is probably slightly, it's not quite as simple as that. If Arsenal run a 99-point season and they lose in the Champions League final, you know, and someone pips them in the Premier League with 100 points, I think you go, fair enough. Like, what more could we do? Whereas if Arsenal finish like second with 80 points, then I think that's a disappointing season in a different kind of way.
Okay, this is really interesting because obviously Arsenal fans, and you know, we've been starved without success for years, and you know, and it's really interesting to hear a view from another fan, because as Arsenal fans, you know, I love the process, and especially in the last 4 years. Okay, albeit I don't love the part of the process where we haven't won anything. Of course not, because I've watched Arsenal for years, and I've watched Arsenal winning all sorts of trophies, and I do generally believe that Mikel Arteta has been given all the tools to deliver the job. But again, interesting to hear what you're saying about this Arsenal team and the progress from an outsider's point of view looking in, because as an Arsenal fan, you can kind of get carried away in this bubble of we need to win stuff, we should have won it, he's been here 6 years and all that stuff. So to hear it, because obviously, look,
it's hard to win trophies, right? Like it's not an easy thing, and then this is the thing that people forget, I think.
What would you guys do for, say, let's say, what would you guys do for a Carabao Cup?
Yeah, like absolutely everything, and actually, I think that will be Marco Silva's big thing. We've got Wickham in the next round. If you can get through that, Adams Park, you know, should be beating a team of Wickham's stature currently in the game.
Premier League side like Fulham,
That's a quarter-final then, and suddenly, look, Fulham have been a game from Wembley in either the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup for the last 2 seasons. And I think getting back there is probably Silva's last element here. And if Silva was to win a trophy, I think he goes down as Fulham's greatest ever manager. Like, you're looking at Roy Hodgson obviously took us to a European final. We didn't win it. Alex Stock took Fulham to the 75 FA Cup final, lost against West Ham. They're the great managers that we talk about. So, to get over that line, win a first major trophy, it's a bit like Palace, right? And Glasner last year. Is Glasner now the greatest manager in Palace history? Well, yeah, he's won a trophy. He's the only one.
So let's talk about Marco Silva. Do you think that he is doing a good, a great, on a scale of 0 to 10, how would you rate him as a manager and in his tenure at Fulham?
Incredibly highly. So, I think the best bit about Marco Silva is what we're seeing is year-on-year progression. And maybe that changes this year. But up to this season, we saw a championship side who were incredibly dominant, who scored 100 goals, who wiped the floor with the rest of the division.
They did, completely.
Fulham scored something like, I think it was 7, 7 and 8 or 7, 7 and 6. So we scored 20 goals in a week at one point in the championship. And it was such a brilliant side to watch. Got up to the Premier League, first season, beat everyone below us. Just did the basics in order, didn't really kind of trouble the top teams, but beat the teams below us and survived comfortably. Next season, adapted a little bit more, punching upwards a tad more, getting those big results, a win against Chelsea, a win against Arsenal. And you're suddenly saying, okay, this is a team that knows how to punch a little bit above its weight. And potentially that kind of forces the old cup conversation. Because it's not we can get to a quarter-final, we're going to come up against a big gun at some point. Right? So you have to beat someone like that at that point. So Fulham became a different type of team. Okay, we're less consistent against the bottom teams, but then we saw that build in terms of being able to hurt teams. This season, I think it's going to be very interesting to see what he does next and what this next iteration of Fulham looks like. But for me, I think he's done an absolutely sterling job. And I'm of the opinion that he'll probably walk away at the end of this season. I think that his contract's up and there will be clubs in the mix.
Well, I think certainly with the Amorim situation, I've heard from within your club that obviously Amorim goes and he would definitely be a candidate. I've always been, if I'm honest with you, an admirer of Marco Silva due to his football knowledge and how he sets a team up with what he's got, doing the best with what he's got. And,
he's quite pragmatic as a manager, right?
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, in the Championship, absolutely wiping the floor and then moving forward, and these Premier League, you've had some scalps, us being one of them, at your place. And I was there and I watched that from your very nice plush, one of your boxes. Yeah. It was absolutely...
Well, you've been in there, I ain't. So.
Yeah, have you not? It's funny. Do you know what? One thing I will say, do you know what? I love Craven Cottage. It's a fantastic, unique stadium, old school football stadium. Yeah. It's got serious character. And do you know what? It's got class. It really has. Everything about Fulham Football Club. It's a very welcoming place, and I love it. But obviously, we're going there to get 3 points. Sure. So you guys have got a couple of our old boys, a few of them. Iwobi, Smith Rowe, Leno. Obviously, Leno got replaced for us by Ramsdale, and then obviously he's now been replaced by Raya. And Iwobi, a quality player for you. But Smith Rowe's been quite inconsistent. Yeah. What were your takes on those players? Obviously, you had Reece Nelson as well last season.
Yeah, he's gone off to the dark side of West London now, but we won't talk about that. He's dead to us for the time being, at the very least. But look, Bernd Leno's been phenomenal since the day came in. And look, I can understand why Arteta didn't want him as the number one. He's not great with his feet, although he's not dreadful either. Yeah. But I do think that, in terms of shot stopping, is the best goalkeeper we've had in a long time, right?
Yeah, he is. Very good.
Since the Mark Schwarzer days, probably. We're talking about a keeper who's been unbelievably consistent for us. Pretty much first name on the team sheet every single week.
Definitely.
He's been excellent for Fulham. Iwobi, also my favourite player at the club.
Really? So he's actually your favourite player?
I adore Iwobi.
Do you know what? He is a very good player, and obviously working. He plays in a multitude of positions. Very attacking. On his day, he can do some serious damage.
He can whip something out of nothing, which is something we don't have loads of within. We're quite a well set up based, possession based when we can be, counter attacking when we need to be. But Iwobi's the one player I look at and say, if something's going to come out of nothing, it's often him. And I think you're right on the versatility point. It's something that I think we might have to see now because, to kind of take it onwards a little bit, the reason that I'm not particularly confident this time round, as opposed to where I have been the last few years, in terms of Fulham are going to go win this one, but Fulham might well nick a point here. Fulham can punch above their weight, is that there's a mass of players who are injured in key positions. Yeah. And that, for me, I think, Anthony Robinson's been so good. And I said earlier, but we come back to him at, playing against Bukayo Saka. And he's been brilliant against pretty much all the top wingers in the league. Saka, Salah, he's been the man that's gone one-on-one with them and gone, okay, right, I know that this is where your attacking kind of element comes down. I'm going to shut that avenue off. He's been brilliant. Kenny Tete on the other side, incredible one-on-one defender. Yeah. Both of them absent. And look, Castagna and Sessegnon are more than capable backups. Yeah. But I think that there is a significant defensive drop-off.
Do you think with Castagna, you think there's a defensive
drop-off? I think that Kenny Tete is probably one of the best one-on-one defenders in the Premier League, full stop. Like, I think you look back at his time at Lyon when he was playing Neymar and all of those things, none of that's ever dropped off. And we've seen him, turn up over and over again in big games.
I think you get a lot with Sessegnon moving forward, and obviously Castagna. And the one thing that obviously you talk about versatility, which I noticed with Fulham, is obviously on, say, paper they play a 3-4-3, but generally I would imagine in this game it's going to be more of a
back five.
A 5. Yeah, they're going to play 5 at the back, and I think
Silva does like a 4, and it has been. It does change throughout the course of the season. To be honest, I think that we would have gone with a back 5 anyway in this game against Arsenal, but we're forced to as well. Like, there is not enough bodies in the midfield for us to be able to play anything else, because Sasha Lukic is injured for the next 6 weeks. We also have a number 9, which is a potential issue, because Rodrigo Muniz is out and Raul Jimenez looks like he's touch and go. I'd be surprised if Raul comes back in. And Silva has shown no sign of playing Jonah Kusiasare, who's the third choice, who came in as an 18-year-old in the summer.
And let's talk about Josh King on that note. What a fantastic player he is. He came to Fulham when he was 9 years old, went through your academy, and he's dislodged Emile Smith Rowe in a place of giving him literally 10 minutes a game.
Yeah. I mean, look, Josh has been brilliant. And Marco Silva was one of those managers who is very much your shirt until you lose it, you do something wrong, or someone earns it off you. And Smith Rowe this season has been much better than he was last campaign. Last campaign, major issues with a lot of it. It just didn't feel like the work rate was there. It didn't feel like he fit in. I think the fact that it was a late transfer and didn't get the pre-season probably didn't help him. But Andreas Pereira was playing in that number 10 spot, and what Pereira was, and look, he's not the best player in the world, but my God, he works. And he used to lead the press and all of those things. Smith Rowe's not that player. And what Josh King has come in and been like, well, my shirt now, and he's not been able to dislodge him. That's not to say that he hasn't been good. I think his cameos this season have been much more impressive than they were last year. But Silva's kind of modus operandi is your shirt until you lose it. And with Josh King playing the 70 minutes per game that he is at the moment, he hasn't lost that shirt. So he's been the kind of brightest spark in the Fulham season. I think fans would have a bit of a mutiny if he was to be dropped as well. So I did think we might see a bit of Smith Rowe on the left-hand side. It's not necessarily what everyone would expect, but when Anthony Robinson is there, Iwobi's often played on that left, or Willian, when he came back, was on that left-hand side. You don't have to be the quickest player in the world.
Do you know what? Let's talk about Willian as well, because he was one of our worst players that we ever signed.
Apart from when you went to the Cottage on that opening day of the season, and was it 3 assists? So he's just like playing at the Cottage.
But that's what it is. But then he went to you guys. And what's your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, he was brilliant for us.
Which is nuts. And he was great at Chelsea.
He's been brilliant everywhere, wasn't you guys? I think.
I know. I get it.
Maybe it was the situation. I don't know. I think also, by that time, he was probably trying to play like he was at Chelsea when he was at Arsenal, right? I think by the time he arrived at Fulham, he'd realised that speed and that quickness wasn't there anymore. He had to adapt his game. I think he was much more comfortable with that, having spent a little bit of time in Brazil, than he was when he arrived at the Emirates, for example.
Yeah, so look, obviously it's going to be a tough game for you, right? I understand with football, it's Premier League football, and anything can happen, as we've seen over the last few seasons at Craven Cottage. It's been tough for us. You recently have been pretty up and down, a mixed bag, mid-table, mixed bag of results. I watched the Chelsea game. You're really unfortunate, I thought, there with the red card. That was, for me, I thought that was tough. And then obviously you had the game against Bournemouth, terrible conditions, obviously for both sides, I get that. But, not probably nice conditions to play football in, went 1-0 up, and then obviously it just kind of, dissipated. You've had some other good results, but a mixed bag of one lost. Where do you genuinely, honestly see this game going?
Look, I can't sit here legitimately with that amount of players out and say that. And also with no one else, Sander Berge will play in the centre of the park.
Yes.
We don't know who else is going to play alongside him. Now, whether that's Iwobi coming in off the wing, or whether it's Harrison Reed, who was excellent for us in the Championship in that first Premier League season, but has been phased out of the team, whether that's Tom Kearney, who at this point doesn't have the legs as much to play that role as he used to do. He's been excellent in cameos. Or, whether they try and drop Josh King deeper. I don't really know what the answer is. So I'm wary that a midfield that contains the likes of Martin Zubimendi, the likes of Declan Rice, you have to have someone who's going to kind of match up to some of these players, right? Like, who's going to match up to the physicality of Rice? Well, if that's Berger, then who does that leave on whoever plays in the third?
Also earlier, I know you threw Mikel Merino into the conversation. What do you think of him as a player?
I absolutely love Merino. And what I think about Merino that maybe people don't necessarily talk about as much, he does exactly what you need him to do in any given situation. So if you need Merino to be the 6th, he'll be the 6th. Do I think it's his best role? No. But if you need him to sit at the base... What, you think he's a 6? No, I don't think he's a 6. But in terms of but if you needed him to cover that role, And he did that at Real Sociedad. He's done that for Spain before. Is that where you get the best out of him? I don't think so. I think
Probably
he's a box crashing player.
Yeah.
Who you want to kind of let loose. So it depends where you're doing it. And so there was that conversation a couple of weeks back, right, when he started Zubimendi and Rice and Marino together.
Right.
And people were like, that's 3 defensive midfielders. I was like, in what world? That's a 6 and 2 8s. And
Thank
2
you.
8s that like to crash the box. That's a very different thing. Now, I can understand the commotion and the clamour for an Eze to be within that setup. But if you watch what Marino does for Spain and the way that he gets into the area, and we've mentioned it earlier, right, 8 and 8.
So, sorry to interrupt, you said a very interesting thing, the commotion and the clamour for this situation. Do you think then Arsenal fans, we can be far too overreactive too early on?
To a result, maybe. Right, like as in the question becomes...
To our team selections and Arsenal. I mean, from what I'm looking at, for example, this Arsenal side this season, I've watched Arsenal for a number of years since the 80s. And I haven't seen an Arsenal side, for me personally, like I've said it a few times, in the 90s, it reminds me of that. And in the early 2000s, those sorts of Arsenal sides. But, we've been starved sort of since 2006, really, of any real credible Arsenal teams. We've won some FA Cups.
Yeah.
And look, we've had some good sides. We've had some fantastic players, but not, I don't believe, of the calibre of these players. And albeit, I understand now is not, I'm very confident going into March, February and March.
Squad, right? Like at the very least, it's a title challenging squad.
Yes.
It might not be the title winning squad, but I think it's the best chance you've had.
And why do you think that might not be?
I don't honestly, I think if Arsenal don't win the league this year, it's because someone's put up a points tally that's incredibly high.
What are your thoughts on Mikel Arteta?
I'm a big fan of the way that he's built this from the ground up, right? Yeah. And look, I appreciate that he's not everybody's cup of tea, and I appreciate it's taken a long, long time. Yep. But also, look what's happening at United as a comparison, right? Yep. And they've just come out and said, 3 years. So we have to have 3 years to decide if he's a good manager or not. Whether that happens or not is kind of a different question. But it's hard to take a club who are struggling below where the fan base think they should be and take them back into that period very, very quickly. And I think Arteta's done that to a really high degree quite quickly with investment, absolutely, 100%, totally take those points. But in terms of what he's done here, he's built out a squad, and the first year that Arsenal didn't win the title was because of defensive collapse and crisis, right? So what does he do? He brings in defenders. The next season, it's like, okay, how do we kind of address this? You build it a little bit further. Last year, it was squad depth. What happens in the summer? You build the squad depth out. So, as in terms of where it should be, I'm not an Arsenal fan, it's not my place to say, but in terms of what he's done and the way he puts it together, I think he's an incredibly smart tactical mind. Is he a little bit of an overthinker sometimes? Yeah. But so's Pep. Yeah. And we're not having that conversation really anymore. Yeah. I think that he's an incredibly good manager, and I think that there will be question marks on him until they get over the line, right? And the only way to silence those questions is to get over the line. There's no proof.
Win silverware.
But there's
100%.
no proof until it happens, right? So that people will be like, well, I don't know if he's the guy to win the league. We're like, well, I don't know. What do you do then? You bring in either someone who's not got the same relationship and rapport with these players, or do you try and see if he can be that guy? I think probably I would be going with the latter.
So I'm going to end it on here. Score prediction for Saturday.
My heart says 1-1. We somehow nick it.
What's your head saying?
My head says 2-0 Arsenal.
2-0, yeah?
Yeah. And I've said, look, I'm not going for the crowd here. Yeah. I've said exactly the same thing on Fulhamish. I've said exactly the same on the same thing on the radio. I just feel like if this was a fully fit Fulham squad, I would come in here and I would 100% say that we've got a puncher's chance, and I fancy our chances of getting a point at home, especially underneath the lights. Just with the squad as it is at the moment, I struggle to see how we're going to shut down the areas that I think Arsenal are strongest.
Look, I think this season, I think we're going to beat you 3-0. A reason why we're not conceding goals, and I think this is going to be the turning point against other seasons this season where we're going to start seeing Arsenal.
Well, these are the games, right? Like it's
the
not
must
the big
win
games.
for Arsenal.
It's the games the reason you haven't won the league in the last couple of years
of these
is because Fulham, West Ham, right? Like, these are the games that you need to actually win if you're going to go and do it. I suppose that the onus is now go and prove it.
Yeah, listen, we've beaten big, top 6 sides or whatever, but then, like you said, we've dropped points against teams with no disrespect. And I don't say that disrespectfully. That they're for me the must-win games. Oh, listen, every game is. But look, I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you so much for coming down and talking. And please feel free to plug your channel.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Fulhamish, but I'd imagine there's not too many Arsenal fans who are truly intrigued by Fulhamish. I run a general football podcast called Ranks FC. We'd love you to have a listen.
You heard it here first. So thank you very much. Looking forward to crashing Craven Cottage and nicking 3 points off here. I've been Marty. This has been AFTV. Please check out the watch along on Saturday for this game. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. Please check out all of AFTV's other content. We have got you covered. Please subscribe to the channel. Please drop a like, and please let us know in the comments your score predictions. Marty from AFTV signing out.